This is the Gray Hair and Daycare podcast, with a combined age of 111 years and a combined IQ right in that same range. Your hosts, Frank Sirio and Carlo Russo.
Welcome back. We are here once again, and this time it's personal. As always, I am Frank Sirio. I'm 55 years old, and my wife is 29 weeks pregnant.
Oh, yeah.
We're coming down to, we could start doing 10 to go, because week 39 is probably when things are going to happen. So we're right now at 10 to go, 10 weeks to go.
So episode 12.
Episode 12.
We are
10 weeks to go. Yeah, we're here.
We did it. We did it.
We did it. We did it, baby.
I mean, Kelly's fine, but we did it. This is something amazing we did.
You know, when you say that, it is. We are at the point now. And again, I actually said this to Kelly earlier today. I think I understand things. I understand the basics of what's happening with her, right? Of what's happening with her pregnancy. But I have to say, to watch to have this experience of watching her go through her pregnancy and seeing the transformation of her body, of what everything she is going through, of what's happening, to witness it in real time and see how things are working. It really is incredible. It is amazing.
The miracle.
Like, I think about how the difference how much different I feel if I drop 10 pounds.
Right.
She has put on, and she's right. She's right on track. Everything. Please, doctors, don't get mad at me.
Yeah.
But she's like, 20% of her normal weight she has put on.
Yeah. That's
right.
Her. Yeah.
In such a short period of time, and she's adapting, and she's.
It's true.
It's incredible.
When you look at it that way, like when you look at a pregnant person going, "Oh, they're pregnant," you're not thinking of, "Wait a minute, they're not supposed to be this size.
No,
this is not normal to them.
Completely different."
Because like you said, when we gain 10 pounds or lose 10 pounds, we feel it.
You feel like a new person.
Exactly. You're like, "Oh my god." So that's got to be.
It is incredible. Like, watch it.
And it's got to be a mental thing too. That's why a lot of women go through that mental aspect of the pregnancy.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not. Some people might say, "Oh my god, I don't look like the same way. I don't feel
right."
Like whatever you. It's because that weight, that size, that look in the mirror is not the same person.
Yep.
You're like, who is this person and why am I feeling this way?
Yeah. No, it's amazing watching the changes that are happening. But so back to our normal pattern.
Our normal pattern.
And our normal pattern is to talk about the produce update.
I love produce.
So last week it
was a buttersquash.
A butternut squash. Which would fit right there.
Sure.
This time we're saying she is the size of a large cabbage.
Ooh.
Kind of more rounder.
A little.
But a large cabbage.
Bowling ball.
So we're a large cabbage, and the update of note is right now there is about 1.5 pints of amniotic fluid.
Sure.
That she's floating around in there.
Absolutely.
And then. But right now is where that starts to reduce as she gets bigger. So now it's less and less.
You would think it gets bigger and less.
Yeah. So she goes. So now that reduces as she continues to get bigger. But and much more, what I have noticed, just generally way more movement. Not like now.
Yes.
Almost. Anytime I have the opportunity,
you're gonna feel something.
I can feel some action, and Kelly is much more vocal about. She's like, yeah, she wants a new apartment. She'll be like, she's over here now. She'll like point.
That's
she's like,
funny.
And
she's a traveler.
She's
moving down the street.
She's
now.
moving around.
That's funny.
So that is.
I mean, obviously, the bigger they get, the more you're gonna feel all that.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's.
But it is fun. It's fun now because in the beginning it was like, yeah, I felt it. Right. No, now it's like, yeah, you really can feel.
You go from maybe I felt it, I think I did, to like, oh yeah,
this is happening.
There's the foot.
Yeah, that is. I felt it. Me. She gave me a high five. That's awesome.
Cool.
So
Cabbage.
Very cool stuff. So that is our update for week 29.
Sure.
And we are going to move into the Silver Fox mailbox. So this time we have some comments that have come up. And so the first comment, there were multiple comments from different listeners about, when we talked about Stellador cookies, which we seem to talk about a lot, the ones that I like, the Swiss fudge. Apparently that was a favorite of many people.
Really?
Yes, more than one. It was the Swiss fudge. I don't know if they still make them. I never see them in the store anymore.
I don't look for them.
Yeah.
I'm not in that area.
I am always looking.
You know.
But so there were a couple comments about the Swiss
pies
fudge
and
cookies.
cakes.
It always makes me laugh too. We were watching a lot of times. I'll put on stand up in the background,
Sure.
and Sebastian Maniscalco does the thing about the lunch he would bring,
Right.
and he was like, "Do you guys make sure you dump those in coffee?"
Yep.
The S cookies, but so that always makes me.
I'm
feel
an S cookie dunker. I like that.
They're great.
Classic.
They're great.
It's classic. The S on.
Yep.
I like it.
So-
Why do I just sound like Sebastian right now? Classic. Yeah.
Classic. That's it. We had a couple comments like that. The other one that came up on one of our social media posts, we were asking again about lullaby suggestions.
Yes.
So we have not done. Couple episodes ago, we did the Billy Joel song,
Yes.
Lullaby, Good Night, My Angel. But we didn't have one last week. But we were talking online about what people sang to their kids.
Sure.
We had a few.
Okay.
So
This is fun.
one listener, Christine, said her husband would sing Daydream Believer.
Okay.
Now, do you remember who did Daydream Believer?
Was that the Monkeys? I don't know.
Daydream Believer is the Monkeys.
Oh, okay.
It made me think
Jones?
Davy Jones was the little British guy.
First guy.
And then the one who actually was talented was Mike Nesmith, the one who would always wear the beanie.
Mike, he was a real musician.
There were two.
Other ones were like actors. more.
He was a real, yeah. Well, I think the other
Right? Or
Peter,
no?
Peter taught the other one, Peter.
The bass player?
I don't know what they played.
I think he
I
was
know,
bass.
I can picture them. So there was the one guy who sang that wasn't the British guy. I don't know what his name was. But
Let us know the names, guys.
Mike Nesmith, I know, had two things. His mother invented whiteout.
Yes, I do
you ever
remember
heard that?
hearing that. Absolutely. Is it true?
I think it is.
Wow.
And then the other thing that I think is interesting, he wrote some of the songs.
Yes.
And he wrote a song that was made famous by Linda Ronstadt. Ooh. Now I'm spacing on the song. It was one of her
hits.
Different Drum.
Different Drum.
That song was a big hit for her, and he wrote it for the Monkees, and they were like, nah, and then she ended up doing it. But yeah, there was that. So Daydream Believer.
That's what her father used to sing?
She said her husband would sing that to their kids.
Gotcha, okay.
Daydream Believer, so cute idea. Another listener and my sister, Lucille, suggests she would sing My Girl to her daughter. Yeah, by the Temptations. Great, that's another
Great song.
Great song. And then another listener, Gina, said she would sing, and I quote, on a loop, she would sing "You Are My Sunshine."
Aww.
So those are cute ones. We've got a bunch of different those suggestions, some others. I've got some ideas. So please let us know.
Yeah.
Let me know which one you want me to do next. I think what I would like to do, I want to do the one from Mary Poppins.
Yeah, you were talking about that.
Don't Fall Asleep or whatever it's called. So I might do that one
Nice.
next.
You can kind of pick whatever, any kind of song. Sounds like most of these are not lullabies; they're just songs.
Yeah.
Like you were doing.
But yeah, eventually I'm going to have to do some of the regular because there are a lot of
lullabies.
cute lullabies. Where I'm going right into the deep tracks.
I don't know. Did you say your parents did lullabies for you?
Not that I recall.
Me either. I don't remember.
No. My father and my mother would sing around the house all the time.
Absolutely.
But no, I don't remember.
Me either. That's what I'm trying. I'm like,
lullabies.
I don't remember being.
But I guess when you're that little,
lullabied.
when you're singing lullaby, they're so little. I don't know if they would
Probably wouldn't
remember.
But I'm
unless you
talking
were
about-
really bad.
And you were right. You were the last child, so you wouldn't know. But
Yeah.
I don't remember her doing it to my younger brother.
I can't picture anybody singing a lullaby to Mike. He'd just be looking at him like. But no, I don't recall that.
And
but,
I haven't. I didn't either.
No.
I did find a picture. We were going through some pictures.
Yeah.
I did find a picture of baby Natalie in the bed, our bed, And obviously, Trina must have taken it. She had to have because I'm in the picture.
Yep.
But it shows the back of me with my guitar.
Oh, yeah?
And so I'm playing for the baby at least.
Oh, that's fun.
I wasn't singing. I know that.
Right.
But I was at least playing something. And that picture was, I'm like, oh my God, I don't remember that. But that's because she took the picture. And I didn't know if I ever knew that she did that.
It is. I have to say, at some point, I had that thought the other day because again, more things are happening, and I'm feeling the kicks and bumps and stuff. And I was thinking about I want to put my guitar and play and let her feel it. But it's also like, not that I feel weird. I guess in a little way.
Weird. Yeah, that's weird.
Kelly, come here.
Yeah, give me your belly.
Here, I want to do that. So, but I think I'm going to try to do that this week.
If Kelly can go beyond the weirdness of that, I think she'd like.
I think she'd get a kick out of it.
That's
she will.
A cute.
Because I think there's.
And that vibration, it's going to be her.
Absolutely.
It's her now.
Yes. Yeah. So hopefully I'll get a chance to do that.
I never
definitely
did that.
want to.
I didn't do that.
No. Yeah, I want to try it.
My closest was to. Obviously, when the baby was in the bed.
Yeah.
But it was a neat picture.
Yeah, that's fun.
Of something I didn't know I was in. And if I did, I must have forgotten. It's 23 years ago.
Yeah.
So when I saw it recently, when I was going through my my pictures for my mom that recently passed away, I found all these other pictures. And it's crazy. Did you, when your mom passed away and you looked at pictures, did it bring... I don't know if you did that. You did that with your family?
Yeah,
Did you go through
you know what? I want to say, like, one of the things I've talked about it before. I do Hallow, and one of the things I'm listening to on Hallow this morning talked about how looking at your child, it's a thing about basically how to be a good father in the context of faith. And they're talking about how looking at your child, you're not looking at your child. You can't look at your child as this child is going to be what I want, what I make of them. Right. That you have to think about it in terms of, for whatever reason, God chose you to be the caretaker for this person.
This soul. Yep.
And that, it made me think about your mom very recently passed away.
Sure.
And I didn't know your mom very well.
Right.
I've only a little bit.
Yeah.
But I know you.
Yeah.
And it is a testament to who your mother was because God entrusted her with you.
Right.
And the kind of soul you are, the kind of person you are, says a lot about your mom. And I think I know how hard it is when you lose a parent. And and to answer your question, one of the most therapeutic things I did was those pictures. Yeah. I went through all the pictures, I did all that and made a slideshow and picked music, picked the music to play behind it.
Sure.
And did that stuff and cried and cried and cried.
Oh yeah.
And
it's good to cry.
But it was very helpful. So I can picture. So you went through that stuff and saw the old pictures.
We went through it, and then it tells photos tell your story and memories that you have not remembered or thought of in such a long time. And going through this photos for my mother's memorial, it brought me from birth, because there's photos of me being born, to immigration story of us living in Germany and then America, and then coming here and then building our lives here, all by photos. I'm reliving this and seeing my mother, through the years and us getting older and the pictures getting, and then there's weddings, and then there's grandkids, and then there's even photos of her in her last few years of her life. And as I'm crying and all this stuff, it's also healing.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, I had 88 years.
Yep.
I had 88. Well, I didn't. She had 88 years. I'm sorry. I had 56 years of her being my mother.
Yep.
And sharing that. And I felt lucky that a lot of people don't have that.
Yep.
56 years with their parents. So when you think of that stuff, it makes it a little bit easier. It still hurts.
Yep.
It's still, she raised not only her own kids,
Yep.
She raised my kids, my brother's kids.
Yep.
And before that, before I even knew this beautiful soul, she raised her nephews and nieces when their parent died.
Yeah.
And it makes me want to be a better father.
Well, you're a great dad. And she was a great mom, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
But I got my dad.
Yep.
And it's time to know him a little bit better.
Yep. That honestly, the one thing that, when they get to be that age, with my folks, my mom was around a little bit longer than my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And then my one uncle, my Uncle Johnny, was really the last of that generation to go. Yeah. He lived well into his 90s.
Yep.
And the only thing I looked back at and I felt like I missed out on is when you get to that point, like you still got your dad. Mm-hmm. Do you have any aunts or uncles that are still living?
I have one aunt left, and she's in Venezuela.
In Venezuela,
yeah,
really?
So
even with your dad, this is the time to ask all those questions and remember all those stories, because there is a weird closure that happens when that generation is gone. There's no more. I used to do that all the time. I'd call my mother.
Let me ask.
Hey, what was this, or how did this happen?
The key word is let me ask. Let me call him up.
I'm going to call him up, and that take the opportunity to capture that stuff and write stuff, and even to write stuff down. But that's it. The hard part now is when for you is you got to have when things get quiet and you think. And then there are going to be those moments, I'm sure that you, I know it was with my mom, where you'll think, oh, I'm just going to call.
Absolutely.
I want to tell mom.
I mean, that happens. Obviously, it happened very recent from us doing this podcast, but yeah, I've already done it 10 times.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, what's my mom?
And then the wave comes.
Yeah. The thing that it's about my dad. It's I want to make sure he knows that we weren't at the house just for my mom.
Yeah. Yep.
That he's also,
Yep.
So a lot of times your dad's very similar to mine.
Yeah.
Very hard shell. Just don't break it. I'm going to show you exactly what you need to see from me, and that's all I'm going to give you.
Yeah.
So sometimes I always think, does my dad know that we're coming here to visit both of them? Even though, yes, we did have a closer relationship with my mother. It's just that's the way, that's the way he built it, and that's the way we took it. So right now, I just want to make sure he also knows, in his mind, he's not saying, well, now that their mother's gone, they're not going to come here.
Right.
And I want to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah. No, that's a big thing. I think for dad, for fathers like the fathers that we had, I think there is that, like they because it doesn't matter what they showed us.
Right.
They see the difference. They see how we are with the mothers, and they're just as human as we are.
I see it with my kids, and I take myself as a good father. And I know the love of the mother is different, because there is that bond of birth.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is that bond of what Kelly's doing right now, is growing that baby inside her.
Yep.
And you cannot ever take that away. And it's not, as a father, I don't hate it. I don't think, oh my God, I'm jealous.
No.
Because I have that feeling with my mother.
Yeah. It's different.
And I love my father to death. And I've seen such a change in him as he got older, obviously, where all these walls that he had up have been coming down, because they have to, because they're getting older and they need you now. They need, especially if you have parents that don't speak English, and they can't write or read, and you have to be them for them. And then when they get older, there's a lot of more health questions and issues that they didn't have when they were 43.
Yeah.
They didn't need you as much.
Right.
But when they do need you, these walls come down. And I've seen that. And my mom never had walls with us.
Right.
And that was the difference. My dad had to put walls up and protect us and do. And my mom was like, I'm going to give you whatever I have.
Yep. Yeah.
Good, bad, ugly. Yep. You're going to know it all.
It was different. Yeah.
And when my dad is like, if you only know the ugly part, that's fine, because you're going to have a house, you're going to have money, you're not going to be dirty. That makes me a good father to him.
Right.
That's the way he did it. Yep. So right now, I just want to make sure he knows.
Yeah.
He's not a listener, but make sure he knows that we weren't visiting because we were just there for my mother.
Yeah.
Obviously, the last 2 years, health-wise, we were there for my mother.
Yeah, you were taking care of things.
And he knew that. And he was doing the same thing to help her as well. So right now, I do want to take that time, like you said, and say, hey, let's have a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Tell me about your stories. Tell me about, your father and mother.
Yeah. That's something that it's different, I think, like with my family, with my dad, and that those difficulties is for my brother. Obviously, we talked about he's much older.
Yep.
And so he went to college. He graduated college. He moved away. They had a very difficult relationship, right? I'm sure my dad was difficult enough when I had him, and he was in his 50s. Right. My brother had him when he was in his 30s. Right.
Young,
and these were
all the power in the world.
Yeah. Like this was not somebody you messed with. Right. And so he had a very different experience and a much more combative experience. Right. As a young adult. And then when he left, when he came home to visit, it was just back to the day he left. Right. He never had long periods of time to get to know my father in a different way. I had much less conflict. I had a very different father than my brother did, or my sisters.
Absolutely.
But there was a time, and it really where it changed for me, I think, was there was a point at some point in my life after I had moved away from home. I left home when I was 18. That I was like between apartments. Like I had a lease that was ending. I was going to move in with my friend Ed and Dave, and and I was like a month that I needed to move home, and I moved home. My dad was already retired, and I would come home, and he would be up late at night watching TV. I'd come home from work, and I got to talk to him, and I had heard all the stories and stuff, but it allowed me to appreciate my father as a person. Like I didn't think he did at that time, I really didn't think he did a good job. Right. I had not been through enough life. I had not been through enough in my life to realize the things that he did give me.
How good. Yeah. What he gave you was good.
Right? Yeah. The things that when the chips are down, when life really puts you on your knees. Yeah. It was the things that I learned from him that made me get back up. Yeah. But at that point, I didn't appreciate that yet at all. Oh, yeah. But I got to appreciate him as a person. This was an interesting guy. He led a very interesting life.
Yes, when you tell me about what
he did crazy shit.
Shocked.
He did incredible stuff. He had a good sense of humor. I got to appreciate him as a man.
I was going to say, and you find out the man.
Yeah, and it allowed me to appreciate him in a different way. Like this is a guy who I would want to know. Who was also my father, who didn't do a great job, right?
Like this man's interesting.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy, and I don't think my brother ever. He didn't get that opportunity. It makes it hard. It made it harder for him, and it also took me back to talking about my niece had posted a video on TikTok about how listening to the podcast when I talk about how my father never told us that he loved us. He never said the words. And she was saying how it made more sense it made her understand my brother, her father, better.
Absolutely.
And I thought that was interesting. But then I was talking about it with my sister, and she's like, well, Mom never said she loved us either. And I had to think about it. And there's such a and she's right. Neither of them, but I think that was their generation.
I don't.
They didn't say it. But now the difference was my mother, obviously, I felt very loved. She was a very loving woman, very kind woman. I have memories from when I'm very little of feeling very loved. But she didn't. Like it was a thing that I think later on in life, I think my one sister, had a conversation with my mother. Like, why don't you ever say it? And then she started to. But, I just think that was one of those things that that they didn't, at least with my family, they just didn't say it.
Maybe it goes back to that bond we have with our mothers.
Yeah, because
we don't need them to
when
say
she said
it,
that, when she said that, I was like, no, and I think there's no way she was saying it to me and not them. Like, but
they showed it. Our father showed it different.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just
and that's the difference is that a kid, I think a kid understands what when the mother is showing, is demonstrating love. They understand that
it's like they're yelling, "I love you," without saying
that's
it.
love. And when a father is doing it, in many ways,
there's fear behind it too. There's a lot more fear where I didn't. I mean, I always also feel my mother, obviously, but you knew how much you're going to get out of my mother compared to my dad. I feared him.
Yeah,
I didn't want him to be mad. I didn't want him to be disappointed in me, and I also didn't want to depend on him because he would tell me, "Don't call me." If you're getting in trouble or if you get arrested or if I'm the last one you want to call.
Own. Yeah.
So, a young person could take that as, can you just tell me you love me? Even though they are telling you that moment, like, just don't screw up. I'm here for you.
Yeah.
It's weird, but my mother did say I love you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the older she got, the more it came out.
More and more. Yep. Yeah. Because my mom later in life, absolutely, all the time. Yeah. But I think it was different. When we were talking about it, there's an episode of Everybody Loves Raymond where I remember they're asking the parents, like he's asking his parents why they didn't, and they're like, the father's like, "What do you live in a fairyland?"
Right.
Like, it was completely.
That would be what I would think my dad would say if I asked him.
That was it.
I have this running joke with Everybody Loves Raymond. If my parents spoke English, that is my family.
Yeah.
Live across the street.
Yeah, that's right.
From each other.
Yeah.
And my mother, you know how she was.
Yeah.
She always she thought that the wife couldn't cook or clean or raise the kids, right? Not that my mom thought that of my wife.
But she was always there to help.
You could see that face.
Yes.
She was always let me bring the lasagna. Let me
That's fantastic.
Here's a vacuum for Christmas. Do you know how to use it?
That's awesome.
So my mother, so it's been rough, but you realize that so many things that she did for you when you were growing up, and like you said, times that you thought, oh my God, especially the teenage years, I hate these people, they're trying to ruin my life.
Oh yeah.
And now it's like, oh my God, thank you for everything you put me through. And because that's how we want to raise our kids. And the nicest thing you could hear when you go through wakes and funerals and stuff and families around is when somebody says, your mother raised you right. You guys did good, and she did good, and you realize, she did her job. And now I have to do that to my kids, and I hope, and you'll do it to your daughter, and
because we have friends that like their mothers destroyed them.
I mean, there's some mothers out there that a lot of people will take their fathers, because not all mothers are equal.
Yep, yeah.
Right? Not all mothers are equal.
No, they are not all
as we know in the horrible stories that you hear through friends, like, oh, my mother didn't even, whatever. Oh, yeah. And then you sit back and go, I am so good with my family. Yep. I am so thankful that I had the people in my world because it could be so much worse.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
That's it. I say all the time, when you think that your family is the only one that's messed up, and then you get older,
you go to your
and you realize,
friend's house.
you realize everybody's is messed up.
Everybody.
And then later on, you realize you had the good messed up compared to everybody else.
Yeah, there's a messed up. The flavor of messed up is everywhere.
Yep.
Everybody has that kind of a hint, and some are a lot more.
Yep.
They cooked with a lot more crazy.
Yes.
And some just enough.
Just
enough to see it, but go, I can live through that. It's a good crazy. It's all right.
It's a good
but
crazy.
I would like to dedicate this episode to my mother. I love you. And she always encouraged me. She was scared of me traveling, of course.
Of course.
And I said, Mom, being in my business, I have to travel.
Yeah.
And she goes, okay, but you have to call me twice as much. So you have to call me. Yeah, you have to call me when you leave. You have to call me in between, and you have to call me when you get there. And then when you get back, the whole rinse and repeat. Yeah. That's what kept her kind of going. Like, okay, you got to do what you do, and I think she knew that this was what I do for a living was what I was meant to do, and she
just wanted you to call more.
What's that?
She just wanted you to call more.
Yeah.
That was it.
I think, okay, and I always say a joke. My mother My mother had this love for hotels.
Really? She likes staying in hotels.
Oh, she just loved the lobby, and then you get a room and you go in, and I remember as a kid, not that we went on hotels, we didn't. Come on, what hotel? She just, I don't know if it was from movies, and then a couple of times you do it at weddings or something, you know what I mean? But she had, and then we'd go away as we got older, and we would go on vacation to the shore.
She liked it.
Oh, and it got me loving hotels.
Right.
And till this day, you know how many hotels I'm in.
Yeah.
And I just think of her all the time when I walk into a hotel going, oh, my mom would love this one.
That's awesome. That's so cute.
I'll be thinking of her when I go into my hotels.
That's right.
And,
see, she was setting you up for a life on the road.
She loved it. She loved it so much.
That's
and
fantastic.
every year we'd go to the shore, and she would get there, and within 3 minutes of us walking in that door, first she'd wash the whole hotel room by herself because she didn't trust anyone. She'd have the vacuum out. She'd
out the fluorescent light.
But she had all the clothes put away.
Right.
The kitchen in the kitchenette of this hotel's would be set with food.
Stocked.
I swear to God, within the time frame that we were able to go in the hotel, put the luggage in, go outside, and set up like the pool area thing. We'd come back in. Everything was put away. The food was in the refrigerator. It was just, the coffee was being made. Yep. And it's like she had this beautiful, I don't know, this thing about like she felt like she was, like on vacation, just like that. She from her watching the kids or being a mom, she was at her happy place.
She had everybody
there in one room.
That was her.
And we would all stay in one room. We would get like a suite.
Yeah.
And we'd wake up and she'd have the coffee. So every time I'm in these rooms, I think of her when she was alive. I would call and go, oh, you would love this hotel, Ma. Yeah. Oh my God, they had this, that, and the other. And she would like, oh yeah. And I would take pictures and show her.
Very cool.
So I'll be she'll be traveling with me
to
these new hotels that we see.
That's right. She'll be visiting.
Yeah, love you, Mom.
So next up, we are going to have the final installment. The trilogy ends our next episode of The Database. And it is part 3 of the John Taylor interview.
Yes.
So enjoy the last segment of John Taylor. Yeah, the idea of wondering what the personality will be like.
Yeah, because it's before the anxious times of junior high and when peer pressure hits and just awkwardness and the anxiety of childhood, which can also be there. Sure. There's this perfect window where everything's awesome.
Right. So that's where you are right now. You're in the awesome window. That's very cool. It's going to make you, already for me, like just thinking about and talking about all this stuff and talking with Carlo, you start to come back to all this stuff from your childhood that you haven't thought about in a really long time. Yeah. So I imagine with seeing Jacob at that stage, you must be doing that. So that's
and it forces you because they are going like a lot of times kids have tantrums and frustrations and you kind of step back and you're like, okay, this is. At this time, by their perception, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to them. Right. So you try to see it from their perspective, and if you're able to, you can sometimes see them going through something, and you're like, I kind of remember that.
Right.
I remember what it was like to feel like nobody was listening to you, or you had something to say, but you didn't necessarily know how to communicate it, and so everyone's just yelling at you and not understanding.
Okay.
So
that makes sense too. It's an interesting thing trying to figure out. That's one of the things that I think I rely upon very heavily in all of my relationships with adults is the ability to find the right words, to find the right, to understand and ask for clarification. And even for adults, sometimes that can be challenging. But with a kid that just doesn't have that,
longer you try, if my sentence goes on too long with my son, it's over.
He's not listening anymore.
He has moved on to something else, or he's mad because in his head, like, I think he doesn't necessarily understand that length of communication yet.
Yeah.
And because of that, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
And then he metabolizes it as like kind of a negative thing.
Right.
So you almost have to find a way to get your point across quicker with the child.
You gotta get it in there quick. Well, I think about that too. Like with Kelly, a lot of times in the beginning, you know, as in any relationship, when you have conflict or you're trying to understand something better, and I would over and over again, I'd be like, just say what's in your head. Just don't, because she would be quiet when we would, and like she was, if it were me, it would be me trying to find the right thing to say. Mm-hmm. And I would have just tell me, just tell me, what are the words in your head right now? Because for me, and I don't know, I always thought everybody was like this, and I don't know if you are or not, but I learned this through my lovely wife, that in my head, I think in words. There is a conversation happening in my head all the time. It is not pictures. It is sounds and words. That's how I think, or numbers, right? Like that's what's going on in my head. And that is completely not the case for her. She does not think so. I'm auditorily focused. I think in language, and she thinks more visually, I guess.
Yeah, my head is a cinematic movie all the time.
So when she was struggling for how to express something, for me, it's just like I just have to decide to let out whatever's going on in my head. I'm not watching a movie or doing it. So I wonder, like interacting with a child, that would be a whole different layer of trying to figure out, like, do you have a sense for Jacob and how he thinks?
Yeah. I mean, it's like everything else. It's going to be a lot of trial and error. You're going to learn, when I say this, my child reacts very poorly. But you sometimes are lucky enough to learn, when I say this, my child reacts favorably.
Okay.
And the sad wrinkle there is it changes.
It's not consistent.
Which is a lesson that Carlo taught me very early on. Honestly, it was years before I had my son. Carlo was kind of a sounding board because we did get to work together for a couple of years, and he basically was like, it's all temporary. So whatever frustration you're going through, whatever just impossible mountain you're trying to climb with this child, it is going, whatever it is, it will pass.
He literally said just the other day, he said basically just that, like, whatever it is you think is never going to end is going to be over before you know it, and there'll be the new thing that you think will never end.
Yes. From a sillier perspective, my son had so little interest in potty training. I thought I was going to be changing his diaper at his senior prom. And anyone who tried to tell me differently, I'm like, they're like, oh, he'll do it when he's ready. I'm like, he'll never be ready. Like, they're like, oh, eventually he'll get sick of being in a dirty diaper. I'm like, my son has never met a dirty diaper he hasn't been completely content in. It's just, I resisted every bit of wisdom people tried to give me, because I'm like, he is perfectly content. And then it happened, and I just never, because it went on just long enough where I'm like, it's never gonna happen. And it did. So
that's funny.
No. So you will have moments of doubt where you're like, I don't know.
This is gonna work.
Don't know. I don't think this is gonna pass, or we're not gonna get through this. And then you do, but then it's the new thing. So
right, the next thing.
Carlo definitely, that was wisdom that has echoed back to me that I'm like, he was right, because I didn't believe him
Right. Yeah. In the middle, like, I think it's interesting that in the middle of whatever it is in your life, especially if it's something that's super challenging, like you just think,
because you don't have
no horizon.
You don't have control. We're so, as adults, we're used to, we are, especially in this case, further removed from childhood.
Yes. Very removed from childhood.
And so
I'm almost removed from adulthood, entering old age.
Right. So it's really hard to see it from a kid's perspective again. And,
in that way, I think I joked about this on one of the other episodes that Kelly was talking about how she doesn't feel like she has a lot of experience being around children. And I'm like, you live with me. I'm like, I never want what you make for dinner. You have to watch what I want to watch on TV, and a lot of it's cartoons. Like, I just went down the list. I'm like, so in some ways I think that's because I feel, I don't know how you feel. Like, I feel like I kind of have the same things going on in my head that I did when I was 12.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't feel like I got a lot further than that.
It's it
doesn't take a lot for me to revert to very childish behavior.
Well,
so I hope
we got to grow up. I mean, honestly, since Star Wars came out in the late 70s.
Yeah.
And really ever since the late 70s to the 80s, you kind of don't have to let go of your hobbies anymore.
That's true.
And I mean, I could not be more different than my grandfathers.
Oh yeah.
Just could not be more different.
Yep.
In at least in those aspects. If they had hobbies, I couldn't tell you what they were.
Right.
Their hobbies were work.
Yeah. That's true.
And so
you are allowed to, as adults.
We are a little bit more in touch with what it's like to be a kid, but at the same time, every expression I use, doesn't matter what it is, but because I always say something, and what's kind of funny is my kid will just be like, he goes, huh? Because I'll just say something and I'll be like, oh, it's an expression. And he goes, from the 80s.
So. See, I already have that. I have that experience with Kelly all the time because she's quite, she's 10 or 15 years younger. And I'll say something and she's like, what? It's just, okay. You don't know, but interesting. So the unique thing I'm hoping as I continue to do these interviews and talk with different dads with different perspectives, that, I'll hopefully eventually start to interview people I don't know as well as I know you. Mm-hmm. But the unique advantage of having a conversation with someone like you is, me better than a lot of people. So what is your word of it, knowing me and what I am facing, having been through it in the last decade?
Yeah.
What is the thing that you think is the one piece of wisdom that I need most?
Sure.
As knowing me as well as you do.
Well, I will say, I'll give two.
Okay.
I have
a list. I'll start with
subsection A.
Let's start.
I think the two, knowing you, and I mean, you are so rigid in who you are. Have patience and be adaptable to that.
Yeah.
What I would say is, like the way they did or used to do, at least I think on live TV, where they build in like a 1 or 2 or 3 second pause.
The 3 second delay before, so they can beep out
before there's like some kind of reaction. I think I would love to tell you, try to build that in, because you are so consistent in who you are.
Right.
I would say just like pause your consistency for like just 3 seconds before you react.
Okay. I think that's an astute, because that's true. There aren't very many times that I don't immediately have a reaction to whatever's happening.
You just know. And anyone who knows you knows that you you are very
So
consistent.
build in the 3-second pause.
So build in the 3-second pause.
That's a good one.
Because you won't know it in the moment, but in hindsight, you'd be like, I wish I could have just not quite reacted as quickly.
Yep.
Because there are going to be very frustrating moments. Yep. So I would say that. And the second thing is, to the best of your ability, be in the best shape you can prior to the child coming along. I guess I didn't know this at the time, but I had gotten myself into the best shape of my life.
Right.
I was in quite bad shape in much of my 20s. But then, as many people do, leading up to the marriage, which for me was in my early to mid 30s, you start getting in better shape. You want to for the wedding. And I kind of kept that up for a good couple of years. And so, leading up to the wedding, I was in good shape. And then the couple of years past the wedding, I was in the best shape of my life.
Right.
I felt better. I felt better approaching 40 than I did approaching 30.
Right.
And I had no idea how important that would have been until I had it. Excuse me. Until I had a kid.
Yep.
And that can quickly go way downhill as it did.
And I would imagine just the physical demands of,
it's everything is, you learn to find the pockets of time.
Right.
So the beautiful part about having a kid is how much it forces everything to slow down.
Yeah.
You say yes to far, far, far less social engagements.
I already say no to everything. So I don't know how that's possible.
And it's kind of a built-in excuse. You have way more quiet evenings.
Yeah.
Because you need it, and in a way it's nice.
Right. There's something there in the quiet.
Because you don't realize how busy your life is until something like this is going to come along and slow you down.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, the whole thing, one of the things we do on the podcast is we're calling it the diaper diet. So I'm trying to lose as much as Kelly is gaining. And I was hoping in the last couple of weeks I was going to catch up. Like, I'm close. But she, I think now with her appetite, is going to start moving up in a way that I'm not going to be able to keep up with in the other direction.
It's but diminishing return there, but
that's okay. It's okay. It's worth a try. But yeah, no, I think that's one of the things from an age perspective. That is the first thing I thought about was the physical demands of just being down on the ground and playing with a kid and doing all those things.
Because you want to be able to, because you don't know it until it's happening, but it's going to be so important to you to be participating in what you can.
Whatever's happening. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, yeah, I would say try to, keep on the treadmill.
3-second pause and get in shape fast because it's going to go downhill immediately afterwards. Good advice. Good advice. Well, this was fun. I appreciate you taking the time to do it and being our very first database entry. So, John Taylor, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks for having me.
There he is.
There we're back.
Our John Taylor.
John Taylor, big thanks for being kind of the guinea pig.
He's a three-time visitor.
That's right.
Or a member. I don't even know what to say.
That's it. We've got lots of good feedback on part 1 and part
John.
2.
Yeah.
Hopefully you equally enjoy part 3 with John. And thanks very much.
He makes me laugh.
To him.
He makes me laugh.
Yep.
Even if he just... Last week we were talking about somebody said he had that great voice.
Yeah.
It's just, you could just listen. Just listen. Yep. And so thank you, John, for doing this.
Thanks very much.
I'm not sure if we're going to have one guest for 7 episodes in the future.
Yeah. I've got to get back. It was the first time. We're going to figure it out. Maybe keep them to more like a 30-minute time.
Yeah. We'll see what we can do.
It's going to evolve.
But we love John. We love John, and thank you. And I hope you guys enjoyed that.
Yes. So that will bring us to what just happened. And this week, not a big up. There's two kind of big updates.
Okay.
As I often do, I will
Hit me,
ask,
brother.
I will ask Kelly. Well, what are the big things? She's like, well, this week I said goodbye to my ankles. No,
That's hilarious.
I look at her ankles.
I saw her.
I look at her ankles, and they look like ankles to me.
They're ankles.
But she's like, no, they're gone. I'll see them again. But very
She's
true.
funny.
She is. I think she has gotten. She has a good sense of humor.
Yeah.
But I think she has gotten funnier.
Her timing is great.
Her timing is getting better. It's like I think she's learning how to hit
Well, you have a good sense of humor, so it
comedic
has
timing.
To,
I'm hoping it's rubbing off a little
you
bit.
have to. Yeah, you have to.
Yeah. She's no, but she is. It was fun. It was so fun.
my
She's like,
ankles.
I said goodbye to my ankles.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, so there's that. But I think she looks adorable.
But we were talking about in other episodes that these people, these women, these ladies, things are happening to their body and they're not used to it. So
Oh my gosh,
for
yeah.
when they see themselves,
Yeah.
they're not seeing what we see.
Well, and
Right?
she's also one of these people that she's always been like, it's not like oh, I could go anywhere
She's-
from
yeah,
185 to 290, right? Like she's been in a narrow plus or minus 5 pounds her whole life, and you see pictures of a kid. This is what I think is funny is you see pictures of my lovely wife as a child. I would based on the pictures, and I know this isn't true, but based on the pictures, I don't think from like age 3 till like 11 was not fed. Like she is so she's so skinny. It's like they were her and her sister both just like
And they look alike. They have that body.
yes, they have the same kind of they do resemble each
That
other.
makes sense of what you've always said is she doesn't have the same relationship to food
not
like
at
we
all.
do.
Yes, no.
So it's probably never been a big thing. Like
No.
every time we say something about our story, any story,
Every
there's food
episode.
around, right?
Yes.
We're always like
Making ice cream.
exactly making all right. So and it's so funny because my cousins married their husbands, and they did not grow up this way. And the funny joke is, out of one of my cousins' husbands is every memory is around food. They're like, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah,
So
it
and
is.
you forget that some people don't live that way.
Yeah. No, not at all.
So those pictures, from 3 to 11 are.
they're so skinny, and it'll be great. Like I'll be thrilled if she's a fit little girl, but I will also be like, have another cookie.
Yeah.
If she's that skinny all the time, like
Daddy's gonna have to sneak some Stella Doros.
That's right. Here, let me introduce you.
That is funny. I never thought, and again, I didn't have a daughter. I have 2 sons. I never really worried about like their weight. Are they going to be heavy children or?
No.
I never had a weight problem.
Yeah.
I never when I was growing up. Now let's talk about that later. But growing up, that was not one of my problems.
Yeah.
So when I was having my sons, I never
Not
really.
a thought.
But I know people that knew they were having daughters that have thoughts of. Let's
Really?
we want to have a.
Oh, geez.
You want to no.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're not because kids are tough, man.
What do you mean? Oh yeah. Well,
Kids are
I was
tough.
I was the fat kid. I
Right.
got teased all
so
that
you
stuff.
don't want that in your own
No,
kids.
you don't.
In your mind, you're like, please,
Yeah.
I'm not going to stop you. I'm going to feed, but I don't want my child to go through what I went through, or you know.
Ultimately,
So
you
that's
want
what I'm
him. You want him
saying
to be
is-
healthy. Yeah, I would love for her
healthy,
to not
obviously.
have. If I had to pick for her to have Kelly's relationship with food or mine,
Exactly. That's what
it's
I'm
gonna be
saying.
Kelly's.
Because in school, and kids are tough and
they're-
rough.
yeah, kids can be
and
mean.
even if we're,
and I think girls are way mean. Like
it might be,
they're way worse. They're
we're gonna
way
get
worse.
somebody. You were wrong.
Yeah, there will be.
But that's as a parent, these thoughts come in your mind going, I want my child to have a happy childhood and not be bullied and not be and as much as people say we don't bully in this school, kids bully. It's
Children
part of
are
our
children.
right. It's children. And so that's it. But I never thought of that, and I don't know why. I don't know because they were boys. I'm not trying to be like sexist or
No.
and they like they'll just punch them in the face
Right.
if they made fun of. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought that way, but
Yeah.
I'd never daughter to
You didn't have to think
feel
about that. So
Yeah.
I think you do think about it differently.
Yeah.
But so there's the say goodbye to her ankles.
Yeah.
There was that. The other thing, and this kind of is, well, we didn't do an official. We're going to make it an official segment,
Okay.
and because it's coming up as part of what just happened. But here is the I was wrong. If you recall, just last week, I was saying how I think all of the gestational diabetes stuff is nonsense.
You did say that.
I did. Oh, come on. So Kelly had her follow-up appointment.
Right.
And apparently the first thing, now I did not go to this appointment. Now I wish I did.
Sure.
Because this was just supposed to be a quick check-in, blood, to do the, check her weight,
The norm.
all that stuff, normal stuff. But it was also the first visit since she started with taking the blood sugar measurements, the finger pricks.
Yes.
So she goes in, I think, and I wish I was there because I felt like I maybe she wouldn't have taken it as hard as she did.
Ooh,
but
okay.
the first thing was she did. Now, Kelly is a rule follower. So apparently there was a form that was mailed to us that she was supposed to be logging these blood sugar measurements onto so that then the doctor can very easily have it scanned into the computer.
Okay.
So apparently the doctor was upset that she didn't do that, which in my mind, that's what I would have been like, hey, we pay you, so shut up.
I'm glad you weren't there.
Yeah, take your time. I'll write it in. We'll wait.
Yeah.
But no. So that I think maybe things started off on the wrong note.
Gotcha.
But all along, Kelly has been thinking the numbers that she's seeing are in a good range, right? Now it's higher after she's eaten, the resting, the fasting glucose. The doctor today is like, no, these are all too high. They're too. So apparently they're looking at the numbers they're looking for are even lower than Kelly was expecting.
Gotcha.
Right.
So if it's 100, they're looking for 50.
Right.
I mean, these are just made up
What
numbers.
they're looking at is also the differential between fasting and 2 hours after. So they want the numbers to be closer together and lower. So they they talked about that, and they talked a little bit about what she should be trying to do to help the numbers.
Okay.
But again, as I said last week, Kelly was thinking the numbers were okay, so she was being a little bit looser.
Yes.
She was eating a little bit more. So I feel bad. I felt bad because Kelly desperately wants to do everything she can just the right way, and she got a little upset when she was telling me about the visit because she feels like first of all, she's not used to failing, right? She's a brilliant woman. She's naturally great at stuff, and she's usually whatever she wants to do, she can do it. So it's challenging. Like we've had these conversations about her work where her boss will just pile stuff onto her, and she will do more and more and more, and always has been able to. So when she reaches her breaking point, it's difficult for her to metabolize that because she's not used to she's used to being able, she's one of those people who probably didn't have to study as hard to be as successful as she was because she's so bright.
Gotcha.
And so she has a hard time with not getting the results that she wanted.
Before I forget did they give her the numbers that she should be looking for before they sent her home to give her these false ideas of what numbers we're trying to look for? Because all they have to say is we need to be at 39 to 50, whatever it is. And then I think this would have been all.
I think if they had,
of course. I mean,
but no, I can almost, I don't know for sure, but I can almost guarantee they didn't, because she would be looking for that.
Right. I mean, I would think in a conversation, the doctor would say, we want numbers at this range.
Right.
Maybe they don't do that to
in the morning. You want to be around here in the afternoon.
Right.
You would think no. So I don't know. I don't know where
the communication
how that broke down. But But she was, I felt bad because she was a little upset.
Sure. She
And
feels
I'm
guilty
like,
now. Because,
yeah. And I'm like, look,
which you shouldn't be.
number one, you're doing everything you can. Look, we'll talk, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
How to, there's different things that she can do. She needs to eat more often, right? She's going to have something to nibble on while she's at work in between, breakfast and lunch. And I'm sure it's going to be fine, but it's hard. I feel bad. I felt really bad because she tries so hard to do everything at a very, very high level.
Yeah.
And this,
that's gotta be
of
tough.
course, more than anything else, she wants it all to go the right way, and she wants to feel like she's doing everything she should be.
Yeah.
And she is. So I'm convinced it's going to be manageable. I don't think they're saying now that like if the numbers don't she's got to go back now in a week. If the numbers don't get better, then she's going to have to do insulin.
So but that was my next question.
Yeah.
What is the end game if insulin is
that's it. So she'll have to go on insulin, which that wouldn't be the worst thing.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think now that she knows, she's going to make a couple tweaks. We're going to figure out how to have her set up to snack successfully at work, and the numbers will be okay.
Sure.
I refuse to believe still
but
that
again,
this is an issue.
Kelly, this is going to be something that you're going to go through, and it's temporary. And we all want to do. There's so much fear, especially when, like you said, this podcast. I'm Frank. I'm 55, and I'm having my first. It's scary, and age has stuff to do with it.
Sure.
Big stuff to do with it.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure, and I know Kelly. She wants to make sure she's doing everything she can.
Yeah.
But don't hate yourself. Don't kill yourself over this. Don't beat yourself up.
I said when we were talking, I'm like, the biggest thing is right now, I think more important than any of this stuff is how she's feeling.
Yeah.
If she's feeling anxious and all that stuff, that translates to the baby, right?
Yeah.
Be happy. Yeah. We have this miracle that's happening. Things have gone very, very well. We've been very lucky.
Yeah.
And it'll be okay.
Yeah. No.
And I think she'll, so I'm going to try hard to, come up with some ways to help with that stuff. But so that was a little bit disappointing, but again, very manageable. Even in the worst possible case, it's a very manageable thing.
Yeah.
But I bet you anything, I'm optimistic. She's going to make a couple
Do
tweaks.
that mind thing you were talking about. Think of
gotta believe.
Gotta believe. No,
That's
it's a tough time.
Yeah.
And then the baby comes and it gets tougher.
That's right.
Oh,
that's the other thing too that I think is the way this year has gone. Thanksgiving being late, and then all of a sudden, bam! It's Christmas.
It's right on
bam,
there.
It's New Year's, and then
New Year's.
We've got a little. We're going to take a little bit of a vacation.
Sure, need that.
And we're going to do that in the next couple weeks, and then it's it's coming.
Yeah.
And I think she's wants to feel like everything. So that's the other thing that we're going to do is spend some time. I know I have my vision of what should be done and when and what we should have. And I need to understand what hers is to start checking things off that list so that she feels good.
Ready and good.
And she feels good. Because if I'm thinking, we don't need X, Y, or Z until March, and she thinks we should already have it.
We need it now, right?
Then I'm letting her down.
Communication, obviously, in pregnancies, because both partners are we're everywhere, right? You're thinking of so many things. So
and that's one of the things that I recognize clearly. Like we don't think the same way. I'm much more, as much as I'm fairly organized and I plan and all that. She's even more so. Like she needs to feel like that stuff's all buttoned up. So I need to understand.
Well, we have our daddy brain we can go back to. That's what we talked about. It's not me. It's my daddy brain.
That's right. It is the daddy brain. This is the dad brain.
Dad brain. That's what. So it's going to come real quick.
Yeah.
Well, you just going. It's making it quicker too because we're doing this podcast. So we're always like, you know what I mean? Like week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4.
Yeah.
So that kind of sped it up. Even though time doesn't speed up, it's the same time, but it seemed a lot quicker. Like, oh my. once the new year hits, it's now the new year that we're in. March is going to be right. I mean, it's
it's coming fast. It is. But that's okay. That's
Yeah.
that was the whole goal.
Then
We've been wanting that to happen for a long
Then the
time.
next chapter of this life that we're in begins.
Yeah. That's it. So that is basically, that was kind of a mashup of what just happened, and I was wrong. But that is where we are. You get a double dose. I'll have to make a new graphic for that. What just went wrong? So anyhow, once again, I appreciate you guys sticking with us, and it's been fun. We're gonna figure out with our travel that's coming up. We're gonna have to figure out, maybe we'll get to do one of these where you and I aren't together.
Ooh,
that might happen. Will it be a split screen? Who knows? We'll figure it out.
The excitement continues.
You know that we will not, no matter what happens, we won't deny you the joy of these
of an episode.
Of an episode. I would be remiss if I allowed that to
Do
happen.
we still have we in between these episodes we were talking, because we're doing this for the first time. We have no idea where this is going to go.
No.
The format. We also have like bonus shows that we can throw in there once in a while.
I don't know if
which are not episodes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we've got a short where we talk about faith that I've got together, and we might put that out soon.
And other things what we might want to get into that are not actually episodes. It might be things that, you know, about ourselves, or just a conversation that might have started in an episode that we can really expand on.
Yeah, we veer off on tangents.
Yeah.
Sometimes, that would it would
that's
be
a fun part.
I find it was a lot. I think about, there are a lot of things I see, like news stories and things that make me that I think about. I think a little differently now.
Okay.
From the context of being a parent.
Sure.
But that are more like some stuff that's more political or things like that would be fun to talk about.
Yeah. So that's something that Frank and I have talked about. Like, you know, we do have other interests.
Yes.
But they all kind of go in this parenting.
They do. I know there will be. I was thinking about, because one of the things, thinking about catching up and making sure we're ready, that we could have a whole DIY series on what I'm going to do with that. I've got some. I did come up with some great ideas of how to do the nursery and how to do the stuff, what we're going to do on the walls.
That could be a fun YouTube series.
Yes, Frank falling through the ceiling.
That could be a fun.
Frank electrocuting himself.
Frank has to move from the house.
Breaker on?
Yeah. Frank and Kelly looking for a new home.
Frank causes a fire.
But that could be like, so in our minds, 2025, we want to really build this bigger than what we're doing and branch. Couple branches coming off of this podcast.
Yes. We could have spinoffs.
So we want to thank you guys, obviously, for sticking with us. And I know, Frank, you put a lot of time into this, and I'm glad we started it, and I can't wait to see what this becomes. Yeah. Because right now I'm still like, from the first time we thought about it, I was in the car and you called me up. I was like, what are we going to do? And I thought it was such a great idea. And then to see where we've come and where it's going to go from here, I'm so excited.
It is. It has been a lot of fun. And now kind of getting organized and figuring out, kind of having a little bit more clear workflow. It's allowed, I want to be able to focus more on that. So like, what are the different fun things we want to do? Because for a while there, it was just, how do I get this done by Tuesday? Right. So we're getting there. And also, the podcast is going to change because we're going to have the baby here. Yes. So that's obviously going to change a lot of our discussions. Yeah. And that's going to be interesting. I can't wait to have that. Yeah. Those episodes of when the baby's this is what's happening. I won't have to ask Kelly. Yeah. Hey, what should we talk about this week?
Exactly. So that's going to change the podcast. Yep.
There'll be the sound of crying in the background. It's going to be awesome.
Holding the baby. Please. So I can't wait. It's going to be fun to see where this goes.
It will be fun. All right. Thanks again, and we will see you next time.
Well, folks, that's another episode of the Gray Hair and Daycare podcast in the books. Thanks very much for tuning in and spending this time with us. We hope it was fun. If you enjoyed this week's descent into the madness of dadness, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any of our future adventures. And while you're at it, give us a like and share the cast with your friends on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Carrier Pigeon, whatever you crazy kids are using. Have any hilarious parenting stories of your own? Questions about navigating fatherhood later in life, or even when normal people do it? Email us at ghdc.podcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to bed.